my story starts from yesterday. So yesterday I sent my mom. I sent my mom some M-Pesa. She called me. I was in a meeting. I didn't pick. Generally, I don't pick calls when I'm in meetings. So then I went and called her back because I knew if there's a crisis, someone will get hold of me. So then she said, as always, how are you? And every time, throughout my life, she's always called me my son or Moana type, that kind of thing. You know, in a very natural, motherly way. And it's always been consistent. I only wanted to hear your voice and to say thank you. Yeah? And I won't tell you how much money I sent. But regardless of the amount, she'll always have the same answer. The same answer, the same element of gratitude, grace, and I pray for you. So I was born in Nyahururu, a place which my wife says has hailstones, which is also true. When we were young, we could we experienced rain, thunderstorms, hailstones. Visibility was, you think the US chart that visibility is a problem. But in my place, it used to be about 100 meters at best when you are going to school. But anyway, so I was born in Nyahururu, in the highlands, which is about 2,500 meters, about the same altitude as Addis, and quite cold. And so I was second born of a family, a large family of 9. And so first son. So grew up, almost became a parent very early. So my parents, so those who know, I don't want to be political, by the way, those who know the mountain, or Murima, those who know probably don't know the configurations of the mountain, that you have the ancestral Nyeri, Murang'a, Kiambu, and then you have Nyandarua, which is the people who migrated out of the ancestral land, went and settled, mostly either during the emergency period or after independence. And so my parents actually moved to Nyandarua just before independence. And therefore, there are some of the settlers who went to. So the thing with settlers and people who migrate, you tend to leave everything behind and actually go and start a new life. Yeah? Generally with very little safety net. And if you don't find what you went to look for, you have no chance. You can't go back, isn't it? We see this even people who go abroad. Sometimes they find what they wanted, sometimes they don't. I lived abroad, so I have a lot of empathy for people who go abroad for better pasture. So anyway, so my two parents were brought up during that period. And therefore, because it was during emergency time, didn't get great education, or didn't get a lot of education during their time. My mom didn't go to high school. My father went to, I think they used to call it the one you do about 2 years after high school. I think it's now the new, it will be junior in the high school, in the CBC, so up to about Form 2. Because I remember at one point during my education, if I fast forward, at one point when I was, I think, in Form 3, my father told me, now you've passed, you are now more, you've gone further in school than I did. So anyway, going back, and one of the reasons, so my father told me he didn't progress, he told me that he was very bright, but his results were stolen and used by someone else. True story. So, and the reason I'm telling this story, it actually said to me, I am being told, when you have a chance to get education, please go for it, isn't it? Or a chance for anything. So you are brought up by parents who did not access education. They saw education as access to opportunity, isn't it? So, of course, there was I'm a fairly modest person, but I was quite popular in the village because I used to be at the top of the class for the most part. And so I was known generally, not because I was tall. I knew that would cause enough laughter. So I got away from being beaten around, because when you are number one, you don't get beaten around, isn't it? And but generally, I had a lot of attention in the village. But I remember my mom telling us, you always have to know who you are. Always remain rooted. Always remain real. And always think about how you want to feel. Yeah? Not what you want people to see. Not how you want to look, but how you want to feel. And that has stood with me for a very, very long time. The lesson of integrity, humility, strength of character, inner character, yeah, stood with me through the period, despite all the drama of you are number one. You might be one of the few to go to a certain high schools in national schools at that time were a tough gig to go into. But anyway, fast forward, we had a head teacher, so I had chosen to go into the thicket in Kikuyu. So that was my first choice. For those who went there, my headmaster told me, no, you're not going to go to that school. You're going to go to Starehe boys. When I went to do the interview, because Griffin would interview every single child that would join the school, himself, personally. So when we went to Starehe, I had never been to such a big school in my life. And because when I was growing up, you didn't have libraries, so you had to use your head. There was so ordinary people, you rely on what you hear and what you are taught by teachers. Or you borrow a book here and there. But generally, until I went to Starehe and actually saw a library that was bigger than this room, I had never seen a library. That actually, the experience of not having anything and having a lot allowed me to remember what my mom told me, which is always remember what you want. Yeah, always remember what you want in life. So anyway, this headmaster actually influenced a lot of then what I was going to be. So fast forward, went to Starehe. And Griffin, the late G.W. Griffin, was, and I don't know how many of you know the Starehe story, that Griffin used to be actually not necessarily a Navy person, but he was in the military during the colonial time, and got disenfranchised, felt he wanted to set up a school that would look after boys and rehabilitate them, because he saw the trauma that the Mau Mau kids were going through. So while the parents could take care of themselves, the kids of the Mau Mau didn't have anyone to look for. That's the way he thought about starting Starehe. And the thing that I felt when I joined Starehe is the sense of opportunity, possibility, from coming from a place where you are walking to school and running to school to a place where you have everything. Yeah? And the sense of vision. So I come from rural, I go into high school, and eventually, of course, go through university and join and go into Pricewaterhouse, which was my first employer. And generally, when every time I'm asked, how was your career? How have you developed your career? And I ask people, what has influenced you in your life when I'm interviewing various people? What are those moments that has influenced the person you are? When people look at me and see me as a CEO, they think you got to the top of the tree just by chance. Yes, I got a job before I left university because I was one of the graduate recruitee through the PwC graduate program. But then after that, everything has been about discovery. So come to Starehe, go into PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I was one of the 2 or 3 people who were sent on secondment to the UK. And I remember when I landed in the UK, of course, I didn't have a passport. So eventually I got a passport, went to London. And I remember because our office was in London, on London Bridge, and I had to walk because I was in the banking and capital markets practice. I had to walk to the other side, which is, for those who know London, there's a place called Bank, and which has all the banks and insurance companies. So when I walked, I've never seen that many white people in my life. Yeah? It was shocking. And I kind of said, what have I done to myself? And so then I walked through, sat because I had already joined Pricewaterhouse and I slotted into where I was already an audit senior. So I was the person who was leading the team. Yeah. So I go into the office and to the client, and the client is looking around and wondering. So talking to the Brits, and they thought, no, the audit senior. So me, I now say, well, I'm the one in charge. And you can see the facial expressions in the room. But generally, I got used to it. I got used to it because generally you become the minority. Yeah. I remember going to a place called Hastings, which is somewhere towards the coast, the southeast coast of England. And we were having lunch in this client that I was doing some work for. And at lunchtime, the client, so I was with the manager who had come to review the work that we were doing. And then the client asked me, so where did you qualify? Where do you come from, etc.? And then I said, I had a school in Kenya, etc. And then, so where did you qualify? So I said, I qualified in Kenya. And then he asked me, what does that mean? So then I kind of said, you take these things in your stride, isn't it? And then you get used to this story of, do you have to explain? Yes, do you have to explain yourself? Then I became kind of, my brain works in the sense of, I'm always, and I remember from the days in Starehe, you're always taught to lead from the strength you have, rather than the weakness that you see. The same thing that our mom taught us. And therefore, I started using tricks like I could decide I will have my hair, long hair without cutting it, or beards. I said, that's the way we are in Kenya. So because the guys don't know how it is, you can get away with it. So I started using it to my advantage. Then I went into graduate school as part of when I was still studying. So I went to a hostel. So I'm already working. Decided to go to a hostel, get a loan, and borrow a loan, and go to London Business School, into graduate school, and so on. And the people asked me, "You have a work permit. You have a brilliant job. You're in the UK working for one of the best companies, and you're disturbing yourself with borrowing money to go and study. What's wrong with you?" And I said, it's all about, and we were taught in Starehe, always about Natulengeju, always keep looking higher and improving yourself. I remember when you are living in Starehe, there's something called the charge. And Griffin used to say, I charge you never to forget. the things that you have learned in this institution and do according to your means, all you can do to enable others to access the same benefits that you have had. But the most important thing that I still remember, and the life lesson in Starehe, was always keep improving yourself. So I knew that, okay, well, there's a sacrifice that I'll make for a couple of years, but that allowed me then to move from the finance side to the consulting side, and then decided to come back. Then people said, well, but you're already doing well, why are you coming back? And so I came back into Pricewaterhouse, then joined Diageo and so on and so forth. But by Diageo career, and I'm telling this not in the context of the fact that that's what got me there, but just more in the context of the path. So when I left PwC, I was an associate director. And then I went to become director of strategy at the breweries, because I felt in my 40s, I don't want to be a consultant. So I was very clear what I wanted to do in my life in terms of the things that felt right to me. So when I went there, and I knew I want to be a general manager, but how do I? There was a very big issue with being, when you're coming from a consulting, people laughed in industry, people laughed at you. Oh, they'll say, these are theory guys who sell us the theoretical stuff. So, and I see it even up to today when we recruit consultants, but given my past, I'm able to get more out of them. But the reason I'm telling this story is, I went from strategy, which is an area that I knew because that's what I was doing when I was at PwC. I went into sales. I was sales director. And I remember there was when I was appointed sales director, people said, the guys in Nairobi have gone mad. They have appointed some guy who is a finance guy and a strategy person into sales. So anyway, fast forward 3 years later, I was appointed CFO. And then the guys in finance in London said, because Diageo, of course, had the controlling stake in breweries, said, there's some sales guy who is coming out to lead finance. So kind of thought, okay, you can never win. But when I became CFO, I now started to feel the benefit of going around the place. And I became a very different CFO. Then decided to go to, my first GM role was in Ghana. And one of the things I learned when I went to West Africa, because I spent 7 years in West Africa, there are so many things you think about people before you go. But I learned so much that is positive about that part of the world. Yeah? Nigerians are not crooks. Nigerians are actually better in terms of keeping relationships than Kenyans. Yeah? Nigerians are very generous. But anyway, and then there's a lot of noise between Nigerians and Ghanaians. So when I was living in Ghana and I was going to Nigeria, I remember the guys telling me, shine eye. You are going to our noisy neighbors on the other side, so make sure you shine eye. Yeah, the thing I learned when I was in Nigeria, it's such a large country. Lagos, which is where I used to live, is probably the size of Ghana, where I had just come from. And so when people tell me, oh, Safaricom is big, it should be split, then I say, in which context? So if you compare Safaricom, I was in a meeting today and someone was saying, we met China Mobile. China Mobile has a billion customers. Yeah. So when we talk about size and so on and so forth, the benefit of traveling is it allows you to actually understand or put things in perspective. One is, there's a time my line manager came from London and said to me, I hear there's a fuel shortage in the country. Then I said, what fuel shortage? Then he said, yeah. So, yeah, okay. I told him, and now I remember there's a fuel shortage. But it doesn't rank in the top 5 things that I should be focusing on. Someone else will deal with the fuel shortage. Yet fuel would affect our business in a significant way. So the thing is, the troubles you have, if you have 20 of them, the top 5 is all that matters. Most of my life, my career, and most people when they see me as you don't realize it, most of my career, because generally I was a pioneer, either in the way that I pioneered, you can move from finance into sales. You can go and work. I was the first African to work, to lead a business in Europe. I was always a minority. So even when, say, for example, women tell me diversity, I tell them, you have to believe in yourself for you to live and for you not to doubt yourself even when you are given the opportunity. I do not know where I lost the need to question. Because at the beginning, it was difficult. Yeah, I could question, am I fit enough? But the only thing that I remember is I went back all the way through my life, that there was always something that I learned from the people who influenced me. My mom, always telling us, you can fight. We didn't get what you are going after, education, but we have sacrificed everything we have for you to access. Same thing with G.W. Griffin. Same thing with the headmaster who made me change the school. And I'm still trying to find out whether it was the right thing to do. For me, that is for the benefit of those guys who went to the thicket. I made the right decision. So as I came back now to the country, and as I decided, should I come back or should I not? As I came back to the country from Europe, I remember when I got the job of Safaricom, my son, we were in Netherlands then, told me, because we had gone around the world with Diageo, so I said, why don't you decline the job? Then I told him, there are jobs you do not decline. And then secondly, I wanted my son, because he had been born in this country but only went to Ghana when he was only 3, to come back and be rooted. In the same way that my mom brought us up. And that was a lesson for me, that it is very important that you remember where you come from. And you always stay true to who you are. And if anyone who works with me, and probably that's what Don was saying, anyone who works with me and looks at the profile, I've always said, this guy has always been the same. Yeah, I might be more serious. People are laughing. I might be more serious, I might be a corporate, I don't know what. But at the end of the day, I was taught at a basic level to remember who you are, where you come from. I've gone back to my school. It is still called Gaidedia, as in, God help us. Yes, when I said that, I did an interview on TV, and I said this to the anchor, and he said, a school called Gaidedia, God help us. And I think, and the reason why it was called Gaidedia was when people used to come from Nyeri to Nyahururu, there was a long forest. And because many times people used to walk, you remember those days, there were no cars. So they used to say, only God can help. So they had to find a school that they could name after what people used to say. Luckily, actually, when we were being brought up, it was actually a very purist place because your neighbors looked after the kids. You belonged to the village. Yeah, these days when you look after your kid, you can't even give it to someone. Those days it was, although we grew up from a humble, we didn't have much when we were growing up. Actually, it was a very positive upbringing. But the point I was trying to make is, I went back to Gaidedia, and we constructed classrooms. I know people are still laughing. We constructed classrooms, and I went back to the class I was, at least when I was leaving the school, just to make sure that it is in good shape. And then went back to Starehe, to the house that I went through, called Shell House. and the neighboring house also benefited, called Chaka House. I remind people that I went to Shell, not Chaka, although the Chaka guys actually claim me. But anyway, so remembering what G.W. Griffin taught us. And the other thing is, and people tell me, how do you remain rooted even when you are the CEO of Safaricom? Authority does not get into my head because all the learnings and the lessons that I learned from my mom, from Griffin, from the headmaster who took me to Starehe, are still in my head. But at the end of the day, it's not because only of those people, it's because I have made the choice. I was saying to Eric that artists have a lot of influence with people because they appeal to the soul. And then he said to me, and I hope we have a positive influence. And I said, that's a choice. Yeah? Even leaders have influence on people, but it's about the choice you make. And for me, if you ask me the person who has made the most important, the person who has made the biggest impact on my life is my mom. So even when I go through tough times and difficult times, I still remember that I have had to go through a very tough journey. And I remember my former employer's brand, keep walking, isn't it? Yeah? And I truly live, keep walking. Whether I drink it or not is a separate issue. Because when you're a CEO, there'll be a lot of noise. And how do you lead in the context of all this noise? And many times when people ask me, so are you not worried? Then I say, about what? The only things that worry me are those things that make me feel that I'm not doing my job, either protecting the reputation of the company, protecting me, myself, or my team, or not serving Kenyans or our customers. How do I remain sane? Sane is your own definition. Sanity is your own definition. But for me, the way that I think about sanity is about that you are able to hold your nerve. Yeah? That you are able to hold your nerve. Because generally, CEOs' lives are tough. So therefore, the only way that you can ensure that you are making the right decision is to be present, isn't it? If you do not sleep well, if you do not exercise, if you do not have space to rest, you will have a problem. So we have to lead ourselves for us to lead others. One of the ways that I have discovered is not to let authority get into your head. If there's a biggest lesson that I'll say in leadership or throughout my life, and what I was taught by my mom, don't let authority get into your head. Thank you very much.